When will artificial superintelligence appear? Will we be able to control it? And how is AI already transforming everything? Work, science, energy, national security, property rights, even how we confront death. Eric Schmidt, the man who turned Google from a small startup into a global giant, has recently answered these questions. In this video, we'll explore Schmidt's insights, the hard facts, and what other experts think. You'll see everything AI is doing today, what it might do tomorrow, and where it could take us in the next 10 years. AI is massively underestimated. According to Schmidt, the only thing holding back its rapid evolution into superintelligence isn't neural networks or chips, it's electricity. AI consumes energy like a monster. That's why Meta, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft are signing nuclear power deals to fuel their massive systems. Some estimates suggest GPT-5 alone requires the output of 2 or 3 nuclear reactors just to process daily requests. Yet, the US has only 94 reactors across 54 sites, with just 2 built in the last 30 years. Data centers already consume about 4.5% of the nation's electricity, and by 2028, that could triple more than the entire UK uses today. China is in the race too. Worldwide, around 100 reactors exist or are under construction, and governments are strategically shifting computing to areas with cheap hydro and solar power. By 2030, data centers are expected to run on at least 80% green electricity. If energy is the real limit, wouldn't it make more sense to invest billions in energy-efficient chips rather than building more reactors? The capital investments are about the same. I get an offer from a new startup about every week. However, no one is placing bets on this path yet. There's enormous potential, but it's still unclear when breakthroughs like quantum or biocomputers will be ready for real-world use. So why wait for a miracle when you can just build nuclear power plants? In Silicon Valley, there's a saying, Grove gives and Gates takes away. Hardware is racing ahead, software is becoming ever more complex, and the cycle just keeps spinning. Take OpenAI's O3 model. For example, it can reason and plan, but at an enormous cost. Calculations show that even massive machines like the Blackwell and A350 would be needed in mind-boggling numbers, hundreds of thousands, to push AI forward. Let's return to AI development itself. If the energy situation isn't ideal, can we still create human-level intelligence quickly? Schmidt says yes. At first, it will be extremely expensive. But humans are persistent. Eventually, the system will learn to improve itself, not just learning from data, but redesigning its own architecture, optimizing itself, accelerating its learning cycle to speeds no human could fully understand or control. AI will become a co-author to scientists and programmers, driving progress across every field at a pace that quickly becomes unstoppable. When will this happen? Schmidt is confident it could be within 10 years or even sooner, but not all researchers share his optimism. Andrew, founder of Google Brain, argues that expectations for AGI are overstated, and many human abilities will remain beyond AI's reach for a long time. The most vocal critic is Yang LeCong, AI scientist at Meta. The Turing Award winner insists that today's progress in generative AI does not directly lead to AGI. Achieving superintelligence will require entirely new paradigms and years, perhaps decades of research, not just bigger models. Can we relax and breathe easy? According to Schmidt and dozens of fellow scientists and futurists, AI is still massively underestimated today. Let's return to the urgent questions. How do we control the spread of these models? How do we regulate the race between the US and China? Where will the energy come from to power them? We don't even have the language or the framework to discuss these threats properly yet. In other words, Schmidt warns, superintelligence is real, it's close, and humanity is completely unprepared to define, control, or safely implement it. The former CEO of Google has many supporters. Elon Musk, for example, constantly warns about the dangers of rapidly advancing AI. And it's no surprise that Yang LeCong is among them. His view is clear. Intelligence alone doesn't create a desire for power. The classic Terminator scenario is far from the most realistic threat. The real risks lie elsewhere. Let me explain, and to do that, we need to start with the timeline. In the coming years, we'll witness what Schmidt calls the agent revolution. AI agents will be deployed to manage business processes and eventually even government functions. They will appear fastest in private companies with vast resources and more slowly in government, where innovation moves at a glacial pace. Finance, medicine, and startups will feel feel the impact first. Immediately afterward, Schmidt predicts a new wave, the bio-revolution, bringing major breakthroughs in the life sciences. Silicon Valley, supercharged by advanced AI, will once again pursue its ultimate mission, extending life and perhaps even achieving immortality. Now is the time to assess the risks of such rapid progress. Its impact won't be purely positive. There are serious dangers ahead, most notably the potential for biological and cyber attacks. Imagine a cyber attack that we humans cannot even imagine, which means there is no defense against it because no one has ever thought about it. These are real problems. Take, for example, a biological attack. AI could take a dangerous virus and alter its structure, making it completely undetectable. In fact, there was recently a report of the world's first virus created entirely from scratch by artificial intelligence. This kind of threat cannot be ignored. This is very serious because it affects national security, the strength of the national economy, and so on. The second major concern lies in security, the geopolitical struggle between nations, for example, the US and China. Today, China is pouring massive investments into AI, while the US is trying to slow them down by controlling access to advanced chips. But China appears to have found ways to partially bypass these sanctions. That's the hardware side of the story. But what about software? Every country outside the West will eventually switch to open source because it will consider it cheaper, which will shift the leadership in open source from America to China. That's serious, right? China is not a slow catching-up player. It knows how to shift into full gear. History shows it. As soon as Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro took the lead among neural networks, DeepSeek appeared out of nowhere and immediately overtook everyone built on Chinese hardware and assembled by developers circumventing sanctions. American developers, still recovering from the shock, claimed the Chinese had cheated using a method called distillation. They took a large closed model, asked tens of thousands of questions, collected the answers, and trained an open, inexpensive model on that data. The result, performance near the top, achieved with minimal training costs. Is it true? Possibly. But does it even matter if China obtained advanced AI quickly and cheaply? A far bigger question arises. Could sensitive information nuclear projects, bio and chemical security, cyber capabilities leak just as easily through these neural networks? To prevent this, the US is systematically purging dangerous knowledge from models with multi-level tests and filters. In matters like this, Schmidt says, freedom of speech does not apply. These are secret and dangerous domains. Filtering is essential for national security. At the same time, the former CEO of Google is confident that a system of guaranteed mutual destruction is already in place in AI. The US and China both operate under the assumption that the other side already possesses secret developments and hidden models. It might be tempting to try to uncover or dismantle these secret models, but if one side crosses the red line, the other could trigger pre-prepared responses. It's like nuclear weapons. No one wants to test the enemy's power on themselves. Furthermore, I argue that everyone will reach this final state of superintelligence at about the same time. And then someone who is serious about the topic would say, well, we Americans are the best, and so on. What can I tell you? Having spent a lot of time on this, the Chinese are very smart, very cautious, capable, and impressive. And if you're confused about this again, remember the emergence of DeepSeek a year ago. I said they were 2 years behind, and I was wrong. With enough money and power, they're already in the game. It turns out that security here is built on the principle of mutual destruction. On one side, there are uncertain guarantees, on the other, proven ones. But what about other aspects of AI security? Most concerns focus specifically on the development of super-powerful artificial intelligence. In the movie, if something gets out of control, the special forces come in, blow it up, and everything is solved. In reality, it doesn't work that way. Powerful AI is trained over long periods on massive arrays of chips. Once trained, it can be transferred to just 4 or 8 graphics processors. In other words, you get a device that's much smaller, but just as intelligent. This is the weight theft effect. Knowledge gained in a giant data center can be easily moved to a single device or even thousands of small devices. One day, superintelligence could literally fit in your pocket. It's astonishing, but also frightening. On one hand, your abilities across countless domains are instantly amplified. On the other, those same abilities could be used in unexpected and potentially dangerous ways. So what can we do about this? The truth is, there's no clear answer yet. Let's move on. One of the issues that is worrying people in the near future, and which is already causing alarm, is jobs. What do you think about the labor market in the next 5 years? A bit of analysis. According to reports from the Future of Jobs, 40% of employers plan to cut staff in areas where AI can automate tasks. Schmidt, however, remains calm. The reason lies in history. Over the past couple of centuries, machines have steadily taken over dangerous and degrading jobs, replacing the hardest and lowest paid work. Yes, robots can already do a lot, but new professions have also emerged as humans learned to weld metal, manage machines, or stock shelves. Of course, not everyone is ready to start over and rebuild their lives. Schmidt envisions an optimistic scenario. Everyone receives a smart assistant, and anyone can climb higher, earning a decent salary. He assures us that jobs won't disappear. On the contrary, there will be more, just with new content and higher pay. But who will really be able to enter this world? Won't some rise alongside the machines, while others are left behind because they lack the tools for retraining? And this is far from the only threat AI poses to society. I recently saw a Stanford study that proved that AI is much more persuasive than the best people. So, we know the following. We know that if the system knows you well enough, it can learn to persuade you of anything. For example, smart gadgets or robot nannies. Imagine a child spending more time with a robot than with you, growing up and learning under its guidance. But who decides what the robot teaches them? It's alarming, isn't it? Another concern is AI-based avatar technology. Schmidt predicts that in the future, digital versions of people will live on in the cloud after death. We could ask Einstein or a deceased relative a question and hear their answer in their own voice. These systems must be carefully protected, or they could become powerful tools for manipulation. AI might not destroy humanity by force, but left unchecked, it could slowly erode human values and independence of thought. There's also the risk of a future like WALL-E, where life becomes so convenient that it's easier to ask a robot to do something than to do it yourself. Could we lose our drive, our will to create and develop? There will always be new challenges. As a child, I used to repair my father's car. I don't do that anymore. As a child, I also mowed the lawn. I don't do that anymore either. So yes, humanity has a lot to do. One task is building a security system for a world with advanced AI. Another is making that world better and more accessible for everyone. But what will people do when robots do everything?